Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's BU Industry Insiders webinar, Technology Order, How to Zenize Your Tech to be a Productive Work Warrior. My name is Jeff Murphy, and I'm a member of the Career Programs team in the Office of Alumni Relations. Today's webinar is sponsored by Boston University Alumni Relations and is offered to our 326,000 alumni around the globe. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. We aim to do this by providing alumni with access to a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our alumni joining us from around the world today in faraway places like Hong Kong, Rome, Simi Valley, California, Oakland, Trumbull, Connecticut, Cartersville, Georgia, Ellsworth, Maine, Nashua, New Hampshire, the Bronx, Cleveland, Warwick, Rhode Island, and as always, dozens of Massachusetts alumni from towns like Everett, Dorchester, North Chelmsford, Wayland, Middleborough, and more. For each and every one of you out there, please know that we really do value your participation in this program and every program that we offer. Before I introduce today's speaker, some brief housekeeping notes. As you know by now, this webinar is being hosted on the Adobe Connect online meeting platform. If you experience any trouble with the audio or visual portions of this presentation, I ask that you please contact Adobe Connect directly at the number you see at the bottom of your screen. If you want to jot it down, it's 1-800-422-3623. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni Association website found at www.bu.edu/alumni. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions you have, and you're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. We hope to get to as many questions as we can during today's webinar. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day. Presenting from just across the Charles River in Cambridge, Massachusetts is College of Communication alumna Erika Salloux. When Leslie Gados of New England Cable News saw some of Erika Salloux's work, she exclaimed, "You work wonders." One of her clients' kudos included, "Major miracles are coming when you work with Erika." Since 2003, Erika, a certified professional organizer, speaker, and founder of Living Harmony LLC, has been getting people organized so they can succeed. She practices a holistic and coach-centered approach to organizing and works with her clients in person and virtually. Her empowered time process for entrepreneurs, executive, independent creatives, and professors leads those looking for a serene reality to increased health and productivity. If Erika isn't organizing, you'll most likely catch her dancing or jetting off on some spontaneous adventure that includes swimming in the ocean. Erika, thank you so much for being here to share your expertise. I know I can say I'm particularly excited to hear what you have to teach all of us about being a little bit more productive by managing our tech better. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you. The floor is all yours.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share with my fellow alums. And thanks all of you for being here today. I want to just begin with some stillness and silence. So if all of us can sit back, if we're sitting in a chair or wherever we're sitting, just like sit back and relax and sort of become like a rag doll. And I'm just going to guide you through a little bit of breathing. And while we're breathing, if you ask yourself, if my heart was to tell me what I wanted to get out of this time together, this hour we're going to share, what would it say to me as you're breathing? So just relax as much as you can wherever you're sitting, completely, like your shoulders, your legs, and take a really big deep breath in, like a full deep full body breath that like comes up through your body and out through the top of your head. And then a deep breath out where you're relaxing a little bit more, any part of your body that you can relax a little bit more. And take another deep breath in and another deep breath out where you're relaxing a little bit more. I'm going to have you do 2 more of those breaths on your own where you're just completely breathing in to the top of your head and then breathing out. Okay, I'm going to guess all of you are done. So let's rock and roll. So what we're going to do today and what you're going to experience with me is just like a tip of the iceberg of what I do. So I promise at the end, I'll give you an opportunity that you can look at, that you can dive deeper with me if you want to. So really, I look at an opportunity anytime I'm talking to a group or working with any of my clients, that it's an opportunity for you guys to make one of my biggest dreams come true. You all have that power because, like, I dream that in general, all of us are more grounded and centered and present and living the desires that we want to successfully, whatever that looks like. Success looks totally different for all of us. And I desire that because I know that if all of us are moving more towards that or have more of those things in our lives, then we're living in a more loving world. And I also know that if any time I'm working with someone or talking to you guys and anyone goes away and like takes something away and starts changing what they're doing and they get more of that in their lives, being more present and centered, that you guys spread it and spread it and spread it. So it's like this domino effect. So thanks for all being here and helping me make one of my biggest dreams come true. Uh, so I want to start off by us thinking, if any of you saw this movie, 12 Years a Slave, there's a scene in there where one of the characters says, Clemens says, if you want to survive, do and say as little as possible. And Solomon Northrop, the other character, says, I don't want to survive, I want to live. And that's what I think about in the work that I do when people come to me. I'm not helping people just survive. I'm actually helping them thrive. I think of live when he says live, I think he's saying he wants to thrive and be like the best he can be. So that's what the work I do helps people with, and that's what I'm going to give you guys some like they're simple strategies, but sometimes because we have to change the way we do things, they can be a little bit challenging. But they're really actually really simple things. I'm going to take questions at the end. So if you guys think of them and you want to give them over, like, we'll take them at the end. So it's okay to let Jeff know what they are. And during the process, there's going to be a couple polls that we're going to take because I really liked it to be a conversation. That's why I like the Q&A and the back and forth, because that's really more interesting to me than me just talking. So I want to start off with something really, really super simple. It's this one mantra that I have found that's so powerful. And I use it a lot with my clients and myself, is that if you follow this, it'll really help you with your technology and how it affects you on a day-to-day basis. So it goes like this. Let the need dictate the technology, not the technology dictate the need. And I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. And first, I'm going to give you a little bit of research because I know that all of us think differently. Some of us do something, and then it changes our life, and then we go, okay, we believe it doesn't matter what anyone else says. But a lot of us want to hear, what's really going on in the real world, and I want some backup for that. So Matt Richtel, a lot of you might have heard of him. He's a technology reporter for the New York Times. He won a Pulitzer Prize in 2009 for the series called Driven to Distraction. And it is that series that actually is the series that prompted all those laws that came up afterwards that banned people talking on their phones and holding their phones and driving. And he's been covering technology for so many years. And he tells us to think of technology like food. Some is fried dough and some is broccoli. And he says that many of us are eating fried dough daily in all the technology that we use. He has said that research shows that every time we check our mobile device, we get a rush of dopamine. And when we don't check, we get bored. Since we've conditioned ourselves to receive all this extra dopamine that we normally wouldn't before we had mobile phones, and most of us will remember times we didn't have mobile phones. So when we need more and more stimulation for a little bit of excitement. So basically we've like changed our body chemistry. And also, there's another person who's really, really big in this industry in ADHD and about technology, who's a Boston-based psychiatrist that many of you might know from the books that he's written, called Edward Halliwell. He's really well known. He talks a lot about technology. He notes that research shows that the more we check our handhelds, the more our brains create the kind of chemistry that we see in those addicted to drugs. And this is like science research, how our brains are working. So that's why they say crackberry. That's why that joke came around when blackberries were really popular, because it actually does change chemistry of our brain. So basically, we've become addicted. And that's not just to our mobile phone. It can be anything on our phone. It can also be our computers, as we know, many screens. So that's why I say to think about let the need dictate the technology, not the technology dictate the need. So what I really mean by that, if you haven't figured it out, is that rather than purchasing the latest and greatest technology or new app on the market, that like says, "Oh, I can do this for you. Your mobile phone can make coffee, and you don't even drink coffee." But then you think, "Well, maybe I want to drink coffee because my phone can make coffee." So that's what I want people to think about: is are they getting the technology because it seems cool, or do they really need it? If you regularly need to send people a document that you only have hard copies of, for instance, then you'd say, "Okay, I want to get a scanner because I need that." That's just like one example. I had a client that, for instance, recently needed to convert WMV files to MOV files. So we found her this app that was Flip Player for her computer. But that was because she had a need, and then we got the technology, as opposed to the other way around. So, for instance, I'm betting that if any of you, I mean, there's so many like, games we can put on our computer, like chess games and things like that. If you say, "Oh, this is great, there's an opportunity for me to play chess with my friends who live really far away," I'm going to bet that mostly if you download that and use that, that it's actually going to take you away from when you're at work and being present to your work, because we're talking about being productive at work, right? So even though this might be a personal app that you get, it really is going to distract you because you really didn't need it in the first place. It wasn't something like you said that you needed. So I just want people to think for a second. And Jeff, we're going to do the first poll right now. And the question is, how addicted do you feel to your mobile? With 5 being the most addicted and 1 being the least addicted. How addicted do you feel? And you can also say 0. You'll notice there's a 0 there because maybe some of you want to say, "I'm not addicted at all." And so if you guys can let us know how addicted, with number 5 being the most addicted and 0 being not at all.
Erika, are you seeing those poll answers coming in real time? Is it working on your end?
Yeah, except for I only see up to 3. I think the screen must need to be bigger or something.
Okay.
Like I only, you know what I mean? I see 0, 1, and 2, and 3. And now I see it all.
Okay.
Perfect. So it looks like most of you guys are saying 4. And a little bit more, 3. So 3 is 30. And can they see the poll too? I forgot, sorry.
Everybody should be able to see the results.
So I have to tell people, but so they can actually see it. Yeah, so we're looking like 4 is the highest and 3 is next. That's awesome. There's not that many 5s. That's good. Yeah. Let's see. Can we tell when it's done? No, we can't really.
I'll end it right now. The answers have started to slow down a little bit. So
50% at 4. Let's go with that. So some of besides this tip that I'm going to give you about the technology that you would put on our phone, like apps and things like that, if you guys can think about that, so 50% of us are saying that we're at a 4. So just if you can think of how you can use these tips that I give you to be less addicted, we actually will be able to change the chemistry of our body back to the way it was before. Our body's super malleable. Our brains, as we know now, in the last couple of decades, we've even learned more that our brains are way, way more malleable than we thought. So Jeff, can I go back to that slide now and move off the poll to the side? And they can see the next slide? Cool. So these are some ways that I have found that really work for when I'm working with my clients in terms of technology, current technology. If you haven't used an app in the past 6 months, delete it or uninstall it. So if you ever have a need for it, you could always reinstall it. But just having that clutter on your phone and the temptation, especially when you're at work, to be doing other things, because a lot of the apps, not all of them, and I'm going to talk about apps we can use for work that are really helpful. A lot of them are just distracting us. I'm also the next 2 things that I'm going to talk about is only having one method or application for managing your tasks and only use one calendar. So I know that when I say this to people, some people say, "Oh, that's a no-brainer. Why would I have more than one application for managing my tasks or my calendar?" But over and over, when I start working with people, I see that they have multiple ways. They have little notebooks for writing their tasks down. They have stickies all over their desks. And then they have some sort of like electronic version for managing their tasks. And same thing with a calendar. Oftentimes I see couples, they're sharing a calendar with somebody. Then they have a calendar in their kitchen that's hanging up where they write down some things where their kids' stuff go. And then they have some sort of application on their phone that's syncing with their computer. And that makes for like a lot of chaos. So I recommend one calendar and one life, one calendar. That's the mantra that I say when I start working with people, and we get them down to one calendar, and that makes their life so much more easy because they know where to look, right? Okay, there's an event, they know where to look. The start of their day or the end of their day, they know where to look. Same thing with tasks. So don't fall into the false economy time trap of like screaming busyness and stimulating irrelevance. Really, if you keep it simple, which is what these tips do, then you're going to increase your productivity, your serenity, and your mindfulness. The next tip I want to give you is really, really simple to execute. It takes probably about 15 minutes, and once it's done, it really changes how people use their computer. And once again, I find this across the board when I start working with people that this is an issue that they're having. That they have set their downloads to go to their download folder. So anytime they're in an email and they download something, an attachment, it goes to this download folder, which I think is a black hole. I consider a download folder to be seriously a black hole. And I see that. It's not just, I'm not just saying that. I see that people, when I start organizing their computer with them, they have multiples of many files and they don't even know which is the most current one, which is the one that I changed, which is my most recent version. Because, and usually the problem is this download folder. So a lot of times, if you're downloading to a folder and then people say to me, oh, well, Erika, that's okay. I can find something because I just do a search. But then when they do a search, they think I don't need to put things in a file, right? I just have everything on my computer. It doesn't have to be organized because I just do a search and I find what I want. But I say that that's the equivalent of having like a bunch of papers strewn all over your floor instead of having a file cabinet. And I'm going to explain to you why I say that. So how many times have you gone looking for a file and you did the search feature as opposed to, okay, I'm going to go in this folder and look in my marketing folder and find where I put those marketing files. And you actually find that there's a whole bunch of them. And you, like I said, you don't know which one is the current one, or you open them and you say, oh gosh, I can see that I have multiple files and I'm not even sure which is the one I edited last. And that, a lot of it has to do with that download folder. Because when things go in a download folder, you don't see them. So what I tell people to do is take all the browsers they use, and some of us use multiple browsers. So Safari, Firefox, OmniWeb, Chrome, whatever we use, and change them all. And this one is showing you Chrome, how to do it on Chrome. To change them all to go to your desktop. Now, I'm not recommending that our desktop becomes a massive dumping ground when I say this. What I'm suggesting is that once you download it to your desktop, that then you put it in the correct folder and you rename it, because we often know we get files that have all sorts of weird names that isn't what we want to name the file. So once it's sitting on your desktop, if your desktop is clear, which I recommend doing is clearing off your desktop, is that then you can see it and you know where to put it. It doesn't become this like download folder that is totally hidden on people's computer, and most of the time people don't even know what's in it. So I would say that do that for each browser. The next thing I want to give you guys is just really two simple things that you can do. Very doable actions that will stop your email overload. And I know that people talk about email overload. There are so many techniques and so many acronyms if you do this and do that. So I'm just going to boil it down to two simple things. Open and delete, meaning that every time you open an email, then you're processing it. If you're putting the action in your to-do where you do your tasks, or you're actually responding and then deleting it. Now, some people I know that if they're working on projects and they need to document things for legal reasons or the other people need to be involved, that they need to sometimes put them in folders. That's fine if you have a few folders on the side, but then it gets put into that folder and doesn't stay in your inbox once you opened it. And the other one, and I'm going to elaborate on these and how we can do them, and only open and process your email on your computer. So also, I know that when people hear this, they think, well, that's crazy because nowadays everyone's on their mobile, right? And they're processing emails, whatever, while they're driving, while they're walking, while they're swinging their kid out in the park. So it's just happening all the time. So let's just talk first about opening and deleting. So like I said, every time that we touch something, whether it's something we bring into our home or an email or a piece of paper, it takes up more of our time, right? So if we open an email and then leave it there and we read it and then we think, oh, I can't deal with that now. This is really big. Or I need to find out this bit of information. That's going to take me too much time. And you go back to it, it's taking up more time. So I recommend that people devote specific time to be in their email, and then there's time when you're not in your email, as opposed to mixing it with something else. So opening and deleting, combined with this other one of reading and processing when you're at your computer, they actually work in tandem, even though they're two separate tips, because you're more likely to be able to open, process, and delete if you're actually at your computer. So I want you guys all to recall how many times you've opened an email while you were out and about. So you're on your mobile and you couldn't fully process it because you needed something that you didn't have on your mobile, or you were in a situation where you couldn't concentrate at the level that was required for that email. Think about that. I want you guys all to think about, have there been times that that's happened? Does it happen regularly? So if you feel like that's happening regularly and not a one-off, I even recommend this tip of open and delete and only be at your computer even more for you, because you're wasting time opening it again, opening it again. And every time you touch it, you're spending more time. Plus, you're not being present to the other thing that you're doing. That's requiring that concentration that you need at that moment. I really think that unitasking is the future of productivity and creativity. And there's a massive link between our productivity and our creativity in both directions. My friend Samantha, I changed her name to protect the mindfully challenge at that moment. Her and we came out of a business meeting, networking meeting a while ago. It's about a month ago. And she couldn't find her car, but I went off and did my own thing. And then I got a call from her, Erika, I can't find my car. Can you come back and help me? So I went back to help her. And of course, we all know that there have been times where we've forgotten where we parked our car. It happens to me. I go to the, Whole Foods, I park my car, and then I'm like, where did I park my car? But when I got back to her, she told me she couldn't even remember what direction she approached the building, meaning the building we had the meeting at. So she couldn't remember whether it was left or right at all. She couldn't fathom. So anyways, I had this plan to find the car, this little system I created, and we found her car immediately, the first street we went down. But then, after we found her car, and she was just so happy, thank you, because it was raining too. That's why she asked me to come back, because she thought, I don't know how far away I am from my car. Then the big admission comes from her. She tells me, well, I answered a phone call when I was getting out of my car, and I talked while I was going to the building. And then I realized it, because if we think about how our brains work, and you're probably wondering, why am I telling you this story? Because it really shows about how our brains are oftentimes split when we're attempting to multitask. So she needed the same part of her brain to register where she was coming from, where she was going as she was walking to the building, that she needed to have that conversation with the guy on the phone. And a lot of times that's what's going on for us when we attempt, and that's why I say attempting to multitask. Because what our brain is really doing, it's not actually multitasking. It's actually switching back and forth really quickly. And when we do that, it makes our brain stupid. And more on this in a bit, of how it makes our brain stupid. So I know that oftentimes people tell me that your boss requires a certain level of email response. So people feel like they have to be in their email. They have a certain job where they have to respond ASAP to someone. So I have a few tips about that when somebody higher than you is requiring that you are responding within 15 minutes or within half an hour or even an hour to email. Of course, I'm going to admit that some jobs do have that kind of requirement. It's partly built into the job, like emergency room, for instance, not for email, but just that you have to be responding really quickly. Call centers where you have to answer the phone if it rings, so that's the job. But I recently heard this Murphy's Law joke that said when bosses talk about improving productivity, they're never talking about themselves. And so we can actually use this to our advantage, because that means we can take the initiative and suggest changes that'll make us more productive. So if there is anything you want to change, anything I recommend today, or anything you think, I think this will help me be more productive, anything you've read that you just want to put in effect and see if it works, just present them the research. There's so much out there. I'm just giving you a little tip of the iceberg today, but there's so much out there about attempted multitasking, our brains. MIT's done so much research, Harvard, and just talking about around here, very respected institutions. And then say to them, okay, can I put this in effect and see if it changes? Let's for a trial period. And a lot of times you will find that they will say yes. And then you have the opportunity to do something in a different way. Now I want to talk about this. why most people, 90% of people, are not technologically productive as they could be, and two more things that you guys can do. And I'm going to talk about these two terrible trends that are just become sort of the norm and very accepted. One is that we're being reactive and not proactive in our choice of our tasks. And this is a little bit sometimes linked to if there are people, that are above us that are telling us what we must do. And the next is that attempted multitasking I was just talking about. So if you see this picture here on the left, it actually is in VU in the Comm building, which is my alma mater. And I was at a screening. And then as soon as the light came up, this is like right as soon as the lights came up at the end of the screening and there was going to be a discussion, you can see like everybody, mostly students, like took out their phones to be on their phones. And once again, this goes back to the whole idea of like our brains. I'm going to give you some more research on this, some really fascinating stuff that's very new. How they have become so addicted that they couldn't leave. I mean, we've all probably felt this. They couldn't leave their phones away alone as soon as the lights came up. They were like, I have to check what's on my phone, whatever it is, an email, an Instagram, Facebook. And so that is something that they were taking if you look at this situation, they're taking their brains away immediately from the situation they're in and going somewhere else that isn't in front of them. And this ad that I saw, I think I saw this on the T, also reminded me of this, of like how we're like all thinking we have to do more, be multitasking, attempting to multitask, and keep going and going, where this ad for rice is saying that it's in a bigger hurry than you are. So like you can make this brown rice, which is super healthy, even faster than the way that you usually operate in the world, which I thought this was super hilarious because instead of like saying this is how we can slow down and go slower, it's saying this is how you can go faster and the race is faster than you are. So 2 tips that I'm going to give you guys around this whole idea of technology and productivity relating to being proactive and then stopping the multitasking. One is, if you want to be proactive, one simple way that you can be more proactive, because obviously there's tons of ways you can be proactive, and some of them are very complex and require, changing your mind and your outlook on things, which I call mindset, is to stop looking at your email first thing. Now, once again, I know that sometimes people are going to tell me, oh, but Erika, my job requires that. Okay. So like, is there a way that we can look at that and see, is it true, or can we shift that? And instead of looking at your email first, and this is not rocket science, like a lot of people talk about this, I've written whole books on this, is to start with one task that's related to your big project, your big thing that you want to get done at work or that you need to get done at work. Because if you start with that, you're going to actually feel super, super productive, even if it's just the first task of that bigger project. And I recommend starting with a microscopic task, and I'm going to get to that later in another slide. Just pick the next task that you can do, not like look at the whole project. Just what is that next task? And I guarantee that increases your overall productivity, which is about being really efficient and effective, both together, not just one or the other. And let's just talk a little bit about the multitasking. The other day, actually, I got a new iPhone. I got the iPhone 8 a couple weeks ago. And I put it in my bag and from the Apple store, and then I drove home. And when I took it out, there was a message on it that said, this iPhone can detect when you're driving and can stop all incoming alerts. I was like, oh my gosh, really? That's awesome. Bravo. Like, that's great that they put that capability on there. Because all of us are tempted, like once we know it's there, that we actually take care of it, even if we're driving. And as we talked about before, it's that same part of our brain, right? That's driving, that needs to pay attention to the road, that also needs to have this conversation with somebody if they call or if they text. And I don't need to go into like the danger of it. We all know that. But I'm talking just about our brains and how our brains work and how it's going to make us stupid in both those areas. The driving area. So in terms of being at work, we're going to talk about that because obviously we're talking about work. So I want to delve into that. The neuroscience of our brain and extensive research on this shows that when we are doing 2 things at once, like that switching back and forth, like I said, it actually slows down our progress in both of those areas. And it takes our brain 4 times as long to finish a task if we're attempting to multitask. because your brain has to keep resetting itself, like I talked about. It also depletes your energy. It creates overstimulation in our bodies. It raises our adrenaline level. So that means it makes us feel super energetic, but we're actually less productive, even though we feel this energy, right? It's that fight or flight response that kicks in. It creates short-term memory loss, and it creates an inability to concentrate. So that is like a lot of really bad things for our brain. That's why I say it makes our brain stupid. David Meyer, who's a University of Michigan professor, says it actually, and his research shows this, that it damages cells that form new memories. So all of this back and forth of our brain is actually killing the cells in our brain. And Andy Puddicombe, who's a former Buddhist monk and co-founder of Headspace, he's also an entrepreneur, a venture entrepreneur. He really is out to demystify the idea of meditation in the workplace and everywhere else in our life. He talks about this research that they did, and he says that the average office worker changes computer windows 37 times an hour. 37 times an hour. That's massive, isn't it? And when our minds change gears that rapidly, part of our brain is still engaged in the previous task. So we don't have all the attention and resources necessary to concentrate on the current task. This slows down productivity and reduces our ability to filter relevant information from irrelevant information. So it kills our ability to focus. And that's like, I think, super powerful when we think about this kind of research that proves that instead of just doing one thing at a time, if we're switching back and forth, we're being less productive. Actually, I was a little personal story. I was interviewing a potential virtual assistant to work in my business with me, and it was our third phone call. And I had already told her that I wanted to talk to her when she was in her office because I don't talk to people while they're driving because I know that they won't be able to concentrate. They think it's because I'm thinking of their safety, but it's really about having more of a meaningful conversation and be able to concentrate. And she just started yelling at me. She said, "Oh my gosh, Erika, you completely don't respect the fact that I can do two things at once." And I thought, okay, so that's what she believes. So I said, "No, I respect your beliefs of what you think." And then we eventually ended the conversation that we weren't a good match. But there was a Frontline special a few years ago, and a lot of the research was local. Since Frontline's local, and they had a lot of MIT students on there who said the same exact thing that this woman said to me, like as though I am different because I'm really smart and I can do this. I can drive, I can talk to you at the same time. And they did all this research with these students, and the students discovered that doesn't matter how intelligent you are, when you're attempting to multitask, it slows you down. And there's so many little games that I do when I do live presentations that show this really concretely. So I just want us to all think about that. In what ways can we actually stop that and see how we feel? Does it reduce how stressful we feel or how anxious we feel? And I think you actually will see a big shift in that. And this is some interesting new research that I just read a few months ago that says that even the anticipation of knowing an interruption could come up decreases our focus and attention. So imagine that you're sitting at work and you're doing some work, but you are thinking you're waiting for this text to come in from your friend about what you're doing later on at night. Even the anticipation, even if you don't go to the phone, even if your phone is off, but you have that anticipation because you're used to it, is going to make you less focused and less available to have full attention on whatever you're doing at work. So this is a big challenge that I have for everybody on the call. And just if you can do this for 3 days and see how you feel. To turn your personal mobile off while you're at work. And I'm going to say, I know most of you are going to say, "No, my gosh, I can't do that." So I'm going to give, in a minute, I will share with you a better way to get to those emails during the day, those texts during the day and phone calls that are personal. So I'm not going to say that you can never get to them. I'm going to give you a little technique where you can get to them. And it has to do with our next slide. So here are a few apps that I know increase our productivity and creativity. Once again, because of my personal use, but also because of research out there. So I only want you guys to obviously get them if you have a need for them. If you have something else that already does this, or you feel like you don't need more creativity or productivity in your life, then don't get these apps, right? Okay? Because of course that would be going against everything else I've said up to now. So the first one is called Coffitivity. And you can get this by just being in a cafe. But if you're not in a cafe and you want some ambient sound, what it does is it creates the noise, white noise of a cafe, which has to be at a certain level. So it's different. Like you might be at a cafe and then someone screeches really loudly and that isn't white noise. That's going to take you out of your concentration. But they've discovered a good deal of research on this that demonstrates that if it's a certain decibel and it's not in the way of your creativity, and it's in the background, that actually increases our creativity. So that's one app that you can use. And this what you see right here on the screen is both of these apps being used together. The one is the first one that I just mentioned, the Coffitivity, and then the timeout. The timeout is in the front, and the Coffitivity app is in the background. Just you can also get it on your phone. That one, the Coffitivity, and that's just the version that you see on your computer is in the background of the timeout. So what you can do is just plug in no matter where you are, and you can hear these background noises. They have free versions, and then they have ones where if you want the Paris Cafe, you have to pay. So either way. So and then Timeout is this app that I love that I use on my computer. That I have it set to start when my computer starts, so I don't have to remember to turn it on because I know I would forget. And this is an awesome app. I love it. It's the one with the little trees and the hammock swaying in the middle of the palm trees. And what you do is you set it so that you set it so when you want breaks to happen, and you set how long you want the breaks to happen. And then it pops up on your screen and it makes you take a break. Now, we all know there's loads of techniques out here about taking breaks, and a lot of research on that. That's why the Pomodoro technique, very popular, one with the tomato, because of the research says like this many minutes gives you a better break. But this timeout lets you set whatever you want. So if you believe that the Pomodoro, the research with that about breaks being a certain amount of time, you can do that, but you can also change it to whatever time you want. And it will pop up and tell you, take the break. Now, let's say you're on the phone and you're using your computer, you can also say, okay, 5 minutes, let me stop for a second there and let it, wait for a minute so that you don't have to, you can be on the phone and still use your computer. You can say, wait for 5 minutes and come back on. And so these are just two apps that I found really, really amazing and that really, really help me take the break and help my clients take the break without having to think about it. And a lot of the research out there on breaks really shows that when we take a break, our brain can reset. There's research from the University of Sussex. There's research from MIT. There's research from people who do movement research in terms of how our body and moving around. So it's also good to move during that time. Research on people when they take breaks and they go away and they talk to other people in the office, they actually increases their productivity because they're relating to people in the office. There's tons and tons of research on that. And if I had more time, I'd tell you all about it. So next slide, one little quick thing I want to tell you about is this guy his stuff is amazing. The Center for Neuroacoustic Research, and his name is Jeffrey Thompson. So we all know by now from what I've been saying that creativity and productivity are linked together, and that when we increase our creativity or our productivity, the other increases. And I really think that really no matter what any of us are doing, that we can be creative in any job. There's some creativity that's going on there, whether it's a doctor in the emergency room who can come up with a new technique that's how things can run smoother, or it's an artist who's painting. So many people think that only artists are creative, but all of us are creative, have a capacity to increase our creativity in our jobs. So his stuff is amazing. Just check out his website, Center for Neuroacoustic Research. He has stuff for all kinds, not just for creativity and productivity, but for all kinds of things like reducing stress. And he does binary tracks that can be heard without you having a headphone. So you can play it and it still works in the binary capacity, meaning that it changes your brain and how your brain is set up, which I think is amazing. So definitely recommend checking out his stuff. Two apps that I think work really well on our phone, once again, if you need them, but if you don't need the use I'm going to tell you, then don't get them. Evernote works very, very well with Scannable. My little arrow, I just realized, is the right one is going to the wrong app. It should be going to the one with the butterfly that's underneath there in Scannable, because these two work in tandem with each other. So this can really like help you when you think about reimbursable receipts for work. You can use these apps together, Scannable and Evernote, in different ways too, but I'm just going to talk for a second about using them for work. And that is that you can take a shot of them that makes a searchable PDF, which is different from taking a photo. And that's why I would say don't use the photo app, even though the potential is there to take a photo. And then you can have it sent automatically once you scan it to Evernote. And Evernote is just a place where you can put things that then, once they're in there, they'll show up on the computer version. So then you can take the file and you can put it into another file in your computer. And that could be like all your receipts that you're going to, submit to your company to get reimbursed. And that's really one simple way to do it, where it's automatic. You scan it then you can get rid of the receipt. You can throw it away if you're traveling, and it will go right to your Evernote into a folder that you can label as receipts or whatever you want that folder to be. That saves a lot of time when we're talking either whether you're running your own business, working for somebody else, and you want to scan your receipts. And like I said, the Scannable and Evernote can be used in a lot of different ways, but I just wanted to give you that quick way. And one more thing I want to talk about before our last poll, our second poll, is a very, very simple technology that we all use is Word, Microsoft Word. And these can be used to break a massive project into a those microscopic small tasks that I was just telling you about when I was saying, let's break things into really small tasks, because I know that we all get overwhelmed and then we don't do anything. And we're in a work environment, whether we work for ourselves or somebody else, is that we want to be most productive and get the ball rolling. And a ball in motion stays in motion. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. So once we get the ball going with the small microscopic task, it's more likely that we do the next one and do the next one and things start happening. So this little form I created to use with my clients. You put the project name, you put the desired outcome. You can also use an app. There's loads of apps out there where you create projects, and then you just put down the very small microscopic task down there. So instead of saying that you're going to change your AT&T bill to be automatic, you say, I'm going to call AT&T and ask them to automate my bill. So it's very, very microscopic task. It's not like the big project is very, very small. So I want us all, Jeff, I'm ready for that next poll, our last poll. And before we start with the Q&A, I want you guys all to think about a project that you're doing right now at work. Just one of the projects that you have going on in work right now that you feel most overwhelmed about. I would pick the one that you feel the most overwhelmed, that feels really, really big. If you have one of those. Maybe some of you don't, and that's awesome. But if you do, I want you just to like pick which one what do you think is the next task that you need to do for it? Is it to call someone, to email someone, to research? So that you always want to start with an action verb. So because our brains, if we read the action, like call, email, research, we're more likely to do it. And think about what that next task is. You have to think about just the microscopic, remember, microscopic task for the project. Is it to process something? Is it yep.
Sorry, with a large number of possible answers, are you able to see all of the results
I
coming
can
in?
see them all. Yeah, I do. Yep. It's big. That screen is bigger than it was before, so I can see everybody. So it's interesting. This is actually fascinating to me because it looks like research and process are coming up as number one, and 30% and 26%. And actually, oftentimes when I'm working with my clients, those are the ones they don't think of, even though they're very, very usually it's something that they need to do, because they jump right to making the task too big. And when you start to really break down, you see, oh, look, I need to actually do some research first, or I need to process this paperwork first, and then I can take the next step. So I think that if you think about using this form that I put here, and you can create your own, you can email me if you want to, and I'll send you my version of it. I have two versions. One's a printed version and one's an electronic version that you can use. And a lot of people still like paper and they like to write stuff down, so they love the printed version. But either way, it actually really helps you get a handle of breaking stuff into really microscopic tasks. So Jeff, we can take that away and go on to our last bit here. So it looks like research and process, yeah, they still were the top two. still. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Um, the other thing I tell people to do is to use this form in tandem with a timer. Because if you want to work on a project that's overwhelming you, and it's been overwhelming you, there's a reason. And if you think that it's going to like suck up your whole day or your whole life, you are less likely to do it. So I say to use a timer. So this howler timer I love because it makes that sound of a wolf howling when the time is up. And it works on your computer, but you could, as we know, there's stuff you could just use your phone if you want. But I like this one because it's on my computer as opposed to my phone, and it's a very distinct howling sound. And what I do is I set it. I tell and my clients too. I tell them set it for like 15 minutes, work on the first task, and when it's done, go on to something else. You can go on to your email or go on to something else. That way, you don't feel like this task that you've been procrastinating on or this project is taking up all of your time. Once you get used to that, you won't be so adverse to sitting down and handling a task like that because you know that you have a set amount of time. So I am open to any questions that you guys might have about anything I've said or anything related to any of this that I didn't say. I always tell people remain open in this way that usually someone else's question has something in there for you, some nugget for you, or something that you can take away, even if you don't have that exact question. So I know that everyone's question is super valuable.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. We've got a sort of a nuts and bolts question that's come in from Shelley, and as we'll ask it, I'll remind everybody, take this opportunity to ask Erica questions you have by typing them into the Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screen. Erica, Shelley is wondering specifically about the app you mentioned, Scannable. She's wondering if you know if it only works with Evernote or are there other sort of note-taking and document sharing devices that Scannable works with?
I think it works with one other, and I'm gonna look as you're saying that because I think they really built it to work with Evernote, so Evernote existed first. So I think that might be the only one it sends to automatically. So you can use it obviously just to like scan stuff, but then getting it to your computer is the part that you really want. That's the reason you want it is because it would be automatic. So I'm just looking at it now and looking at the settings, like if it lets me. Nope, it only works with Evernote.
Okay.
Well, my guess is I would ask Shelly, is there another app she's thinking she wants it specifically to work with? Because I would go backwards that other way. So does she want to tell us? Is she thinking of another one that she already has and she's using? And
Shelley,
if
if
she
you want to go
is,
ahead and just answer that using the Q&A chat box, I can.
yeah, Shelly, if you let us know. Because then you might actually look at that app and see does it have something similar to Scannable. Otherwise, I highly recommend even the free version of Evernote, but the paid version lets you do more, is super awesome for a lot of things. So, but I understand, like, if you're already using an app that you want to just use already, obviously that goes along with my whole presentation is about like having less being more.
So Shelley is actually, it looks like she might be a BU employee, BU being the number one employer of BU alumni. But that the travel and reimbursement platform is through, oh boy, what the heck is the name of that? Anyway, Shelley, I have to guess as a BU employee myself that the security levels on that travel and reimbursement, oh, Concur, exactly. Um, the security levels on those are so crazy. I bet there's no apps you can really connect to that, but I don't know.
You can still, but what you can do is you can still use it to get it onto your computer. So what happens is you scan it, it goes into Evernote, then you've got a version that's on your computer, and then you can put it into the BU system, whatever the system BU wants, because it's going to be a PDF at that point.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can, that way you have it on your computer and you don't have to carry it around, and it's less likely that it's lost. And once again, they're all end up in one spot, in one folder on your Evernote, and then you can put it into the BU system.
Not a question, but a comment from Eden. Eden wanted to make sure everybody knows that a lot of Jeffrey Thompson's stuff, and Erica, you obviously talked about the music that he created, is available both on Spotify and on Apple Music. I'm guessing that Eden's talking about free versions of that you don't have to pay for. But Eden, thanks for chiming in with that.
Yeah, so Spotify, yes, would be free, but an Apple would probably be if you're paying for the Apple service, because otherwise not, as far as I know, for the Apple service. So yeah, but it's really awesome to think about free versions of it. Yes. Great, thanks for telling us that.
Question, and I think I know the answer. But she's asking regarding the timed breaks that you talked about, sort of putting in. Do you feel like an app is really necessary if your phone already has airplane mode and timers?
Yeah, so you could do airplane mode, yes, for your phone. You don't, that's different. That I didn't recommend an app for silencing your phone. I just said turn it off while you're working. So yes. And then what was the other one that she just said? For the timer. Tell me that part again.
Right. If your phone already has airplane mode and built-in sort of like stopwatch timers.
Yeah, but that's not the same as breaking your computer and stopping you from working. So the app that I'm recommending, the timeout, actually stops you and reminds you to stop, and like it pops up so you can't work at your computer unless you click something and say I want to like put a put a pause on it and have it come back later. So I don't think we remember to set breaks, and there so that's why I think it's better than using your phone because your phone isn't gonna say every hour to stop you for 3 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this app will do that. You set it, and you know every hour you want it to stop for 3 minutes, or every 25 minutes you want it to stop for 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? It does something very different than what your phone is capable of doing. But the
Great.
airplane mode, she's right. If you just want to, like I said, put your phone on airplane mode or shut your phone off while you're working, yes, of course. You don't need an app for that, an additional app for that.
Melissa's asking if you can clarify more about Howler Timer. Were you able to integrate that into an actual Word doc, or is that just something that runs alongside other apps on your computer?
Yes, it's a separate document altogether. You download it; it's free, and it's like a little. You'll see a little wolf and a moon, like a little wolf baying in front of the moon, and it's like an app that runs on your computer. And once again, you can set it to start like at your computer when startup, so at least you remember to use it when you use it in tandem with working on a task or something like that. Yeah. And I looked at a lot of different apps before I actually really picked that one because once again, it works on your computer, not on your phone. So when you're working on a project on your computer, it's going to, say, okay, you're done now. 10 minutes is up. And you can also use it in other ways. Like I use it when I work with my success partner. We talk every week on the phone, and we each have a section in our 45 minutes where we bring something to the table, and we have 5 minutes each. So I use it for that too. You can use it for like a meeting to remind you to stop the meeting because you might forget in an hour, and meetings sometimes go too long. Like that, you can use it for a lot of things, but once again, it runs on your computer, not on your phone.
Shelley, thanks for your question. Yes, we are recording this webinar and it will be available in about a week on our website at bu.edu/alumni. If you navigate to the careers section, there's a whole section for where this webinar will be posted along with 90% of all the other ones that we've done in the last 4 years or so, so make sure you check that out. Erika, I've got a question of my own for you. You said at the beginning of your presentation that you really recommend people use just one calendar. And that's actually something I've struggled with in the past. 95% of what I'm tracking on my calendar is through my work calendar. It's my, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm investing a lot of time in, people's birthdays, other personal things that I want to remember are in my work calendar. But what happens if suddenly I don't work here anymore? How do you recommend I would sort of navigate that? I'm guessing that might be true for a lot of folks that need to use their work calendar for the majority of what they're trying to track.
So you have to know the platform because there's different answers depending on the platforms that you're using. So what's the platform you're using at work
I'm using Outlook.
Yeah, Outlook. I was going to say that's usually the one.
Yeah.
So if you're putting everything into Outlook, and then I'm assuming it's syncing to your phone too, right? So you get birthdays and events that are personal also there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So does that mean that people at work can see your personal calendar too, or is there a way that you're making stuff personal, like it's private? Because that's another thing I see people bring up to me.
I'm the only one that can actually see the details of the appointment.
Right. So what I would say is that if you weren't going to work there, you'd plan and you'd export it into another platform before you left. That's the solution because it sounds like you at least only have one calendar. A lot of times when I see clients on Outlook who also work on an Apple platform at home, then they've got two calendars because they're not integrating them, right? So sometimes they do one where they integrate them in a way that it's going through like a Google Calendar, so it lives in the cloud. But since you're not doing that, you already just have everything on Outlook. What I would say is you'd migrate it usually through one platform that's the intermediary platform to the new platform that whatever you, if you're bringing them to a new job or you're just going to be working for yourself and you want to start your own, have it be on something else. That's what you would do with export.
Elizabeth weighed in with a thought of her own and sort of a question while we were talking about calendars. Elizabeth is asking what I think of as like sort of the existential question about technology. Her point is digital calendars are not foolproof. Is a written backup not a good idea? She's experienced iCloud glitches, had appointments disappear. And that's true of all technology, right?
Yes, completely. Okay, so there's two things she's bringing up. One is the whole backing up issue of like how you can stop it from things disappearing. The other is just glitches, which has happened to everybody. It's even happened to me where I'm like, wait, I know I changed that. Where's the change that I made on that calendar thing? Mm-hmm. So that's different, and that's something that can, I don't recommend having a paper backup just because that can happen. I just recommend that the next step is making sure that we have 3 versions of everything that we have electronic in terms of calendar, tasks, those kinds of things that we have that are syncing back and forth. So this is how you do it. Number 1, it's on your computer. So you have that. So let's say you have a calendar you have the version that's on your computer. Number 2, you've got the one on your mobile. That's the same one. It's like syncing with your phone. So I consider that to be 1, the phone and the computer. Number 2, you have an external backup that's a hard drive that's backing up to your computer. That if you're talking personal or you're running your own business, if you work for BU, for instance, or anybody else, they're backing up to a server. So if something happens and your computer is stolen, your phone is stolen, it's backed up to the server. But you need to create that physical backup for yourself on your personal end or for your own business. Then there's the third backup that is the cloud. So I recommend having a Carbonite, something like that, where everything, CrashPlan is just stopping their personal, they're just integrating into Carbonite, and so they're not going to have that anymore. But CrashPlan was a great one out there. There's loads of them where as soon as you're connected to the internet on your computer, everything is backed up automatically. It's happening. So that you have 3 ways that things can be backed up. So for instance, I was just in Argentina and my personal mobile got stolen. The guy drove by on a motorcycle, ripped my phone right out of my hand as I was holding it and on the sidewalk, right? So I didn't have to worry because everything on there was backed up to the cloud. So I didn't lose. I had 7 months of photos on there, but I didn't have to worry. That's why I bought a new phone, by the way. I was all backed up. So and same thing on my calendar, everything on there was backed up to the cloud. Same thing with your computer. If someone comes along and takes the backup drive, the hard one, and takes your computer, you're still backed up to the Carbonite or whatever you're using to back it up. So all that can be restored. Everything from your bookmarks, every little thing on your computer, all your docs are going to be stored on your new computer. So that's what I recommend. In terms of the glitches, yeah, I think we just have to live with that happens. And sometimes sometimes it's our fault. We make a little mistake, like we didn't save the thing right or whatever. We learn from that, right? When we do that, oh crap, I should have just pressed save, and that would have saved that. But you're right, sometimes that happens. There are glitches.
We're running right up against our hour, but Ed has asked a question that I think will be great for us to end on.
Okay. Go ahead, let's go for it.
Yeah, Ed's typed in, thank you for sharing your expertise, Erika. Do you find that younger people who have been raised in the mobile and app world manage these challenges better or worse than older generations?
Oh, what a great question. So I definitely think that when we are doing any projects or working with people that either of a different generation or they are from a different field than us, that we have to take all of that into consideration. So this is only my personal experience, and though I've read some research on this and ways to better work with millennials, they have opinions about this sort of thing. And when I read some of the advice, I think, oh, that could be good for anybody. So I have found that younger people are more challenged because they didn't grow up with it any other way. Whereas me, for instance, I saw it a different way and I remember that different way. And I sometimes can think about how I can go back to that because I had seen it and I lived a different way. So when people say, can you live without the internet? I say, yeah, I have. And sometimes I do. And I'm okay with that. Whereas someone who's younger than me, in their 20s or going to BU at the moment, I did a project with a bunch of students at BU recently. And I definitely noticed that it was way much harder for them to be there and be really present and not be as distracted and be on their devices. And also they expected me if they sent an email to me, that I would respond within like an hour, like really super quickly. So I set the expectation. I changed that with them. I said, if we do this together, I want you to know that I won't be responding an email that quick. So I definitely find that it's more challenging for younger people.
Interesting. Well, Erika, thank you so much for the time that you've put in. Obviously, you shared, you have your own business and you have shared your expertise for free with the alumni community. And so I really appreciate that. And I'm curious if you could tell us more about how alumni can follow up with you to learn more. You've got a great offer here for our alumni on the call today.
So I'm sure all of you on the call have seen it's been up here, so I don't have to really explain it. But there's a free way, and then there's a way if you want to dive a little deeper with me. And those are like actually such a real value. Like I really do charge those rates really, and this is like just a value that you guys can get until the 14th of November with me. All you have to do is email me or call me. If you go to my website, living-harmony.org, you'll see phone number on every single page. If you have any questions too, just like feel free to call me. Anything that you want to have a quick question on, anything that you want me to give you a tip on or anything like that, like completely feel free to call me. And then I want to leave you with one other thing. I want you guys to think about one action that you're willing to commit to again tomorrow that arose as a result of our time together. So if you can think of one thing that you're like, yeah, I can do that thing, I can start it tomorrow and see what happens, see if I feel a change, and then jot it down right now somewhere. That's like what I want to leave you with. Because I always think if we can always just do one little thing, then things start to shift and snowball, like I said, in a good way. So thanks everybody for being here and sharing this time with me.
Thank you again, Erika. And I'm a little bit ashamed that I was multitasking while you were doing your presentation. But my one thing that I'll start tomorrow is I've already downloaded the Coffeetivity app to my phone. So that's something that I'll be trying. And again, I really, on behalf of the BU Alumni Association, I want to thank you for your time and your expertise that you've shared today.
You're welcome. Ciao, everybody.
My thanks also go out to all of our guests for participating. Specifically want to thank those of you who've donated to BU in the past. We have another excellent webinar coming up next week on November 16th. We're presenting Bringing Your Passion into Work for Sustainable Innovation. Really interesting alum who works for the Mars Corporation is going to be talking about his work inside the company, sort of reinventing some great things and affecting some change around the globe. I encourage all of you to visit our website at bu.edu/alumni/events to see the full schedule of alumni opportunities and events coming up. As always, if you or any BU alum you know would be interested in presenting a professional development webinar like this for the BU Alumni Association, feel free to contact me at the Alumni Relations Office or by email at jtmurphy@bu.edu. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Have a great day or a great evening, wherever you might be.